Welcome in, everyone, to the Landry Football Podcast Network as we take this is ACC football and beyond, taking you through the ACC as well as Notre Dame and kind of telling you what the film says about each of the games. We through now week 5 of the college football season. We're going to be breaking down later in the week all the week 6 games. A lot to get to. Wake Forest rebounds from its loss last week with a 31-21 road win over Florida State. We thought that would probably happen. They're one of the worst rushing teams in the country, really did a good job in winning this game in large part due to their running game. 171 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Syracuse, as we thought, would roll past Wagner. Sean Tucker getting the running game going. North Carolina cruise past Virginia Tech. That's a massive rebuild in Blacksburg. And Drake May has just been outstanding. They have the Hokies have been blown out in back-to-back weeks. Got Pittsburgh, Miami, and North Carolina State next on the schedule. Duke ends a 13-game losing streak in ACC play with a 38-17 victory over Virginia. Tony Elliott was kind of vocal in picking the Virginia Cavs ahead of the Duke Blue Devils in the preseason media days. Whatever. Right now it definitely looked like first-year head coach Mike Elko is a little bit off to a better start and has got a little bit better look of a program and in better shape, quite frankly, than Tony Elliott has at Virginia. And Malik Cunningham suffered a second-half injury that Louisville couldn't overcome. What an ugly loss, 34-33 in a competitive game, of course, but an ugly loss to a Boston College team that has really been struggling. Phil Jurkovec led the way for the Eagles, 18 for 21 passing, 304 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's a bad loss for Scott Satterfield, whose Cardinals will now sit at 2-3, and he is someone that we're going to have to watch and see whether if they continue to flounder, that's a job opening that could come available. Hey, a reminder as we get into the rankings of the teams in more detail, team by team of this past week, a reminder that you can get even more detailed film room breakdowns of each and every team inside the ACC, the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, Pac-12, Group of 5, everywhere in college football, and in the NFL over at LandryFootball.com. It's where you want to go to get the most detailed film room analysis on the market from a coaching and scouting perspective with the years of experience that we have. So check it out at LandryFootball.com. Take advantage of the football season sale today. We'd like to ask you to subscribe, like, and share ACC Football and Beyond. Sign up for ACC Football and Beyond wherever you get your podcast. Sign up for the Landry Football Podcast Network. Subscribe, like, and share that as well. Free to do wherever you get your podcast. ACC Football and Beyond and Landry Football Podcast Network. Subscribe, like, and share. Also, subscribe, like, and share Off the Hook Sports YouTube channel where you can watch us do this show. We appreciate you. Well, week 5 is in the books. I didn't mention in the intro the most impressive performance of the week, and it was Clemson solidifying its place. It's the best team in the league, beating NC State. I think they have now beaten the second and third best teams in the ACC in the last 2 weeks. Wake Forest has got a more consistent and better offense than NC State. NC State has a better defense by a good margin. In either case, those are the second and third best teams inside the league. And they have beaten them in back-to-back. North Carolina, Pittsburgh, what a tough loss there. Let's take a look at it. For Virginia, Tony Elliott, things are not looking good for the Clemson assistant early on. He's going to get some time. Brendan Armstrong looks lost. Elliott doesn't look like he's any answers for what they're doing with him. It's really an ugly look right now, and Tony's got to get a handle on it. There's a lot of talk about how bright he was, and I think he's a good coach, but this is a tough job for a guy like that, first-time head coach, to come in and have to build a program that's, quite frankly, got some real issues going on. So I'm not off the field issues, but there's a talent deficiency. He has had success coaching superior talent relative to everybody that they've played in this league when he was at Clemson. And now he's doing the opposite. And the concern is not that they're not winning, but they're not even competitive. And you couldn't say that in most recent years. And Brendan Armstrong, who has some talent, is playing very poorly to this point. It's been a rough year in the state, in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Virginia Tech has looked bad. They are non-competitive for the second week in a row. This offense is among the worst looking in the country right now, at least among the Power Five. It's absolutely bad. So bad that I would say those programs look even worse right now than Georgia Tech. Now, the difference is Brent Pry is in his first year. As I mentioned, Tony Elliott's in his first year. We know that Georgia Tech has, had a number of years, and Jeff Collins has been fired. Brent Key had his team playing hard, playing well, beating a ranked Pittsburgh team on the road, and that's good for them. It tells you a little bit about kind of where the program has been under Jeff Collins, and maybe the air of uncertainty of what was likely coming down the pipe. Maybe that allowed them to play a little freer at Tech, but a really nice performance. But Tech's got a long way to go. But right now, look, maybe in better circumstances, at least that they're starting over, Virginia and Virginia Tech look worse at this point in their first year coaches. Another guy that is in some trouble, I think, is Louisville. And Scott Satterfield. Tough loss. Now, I know it has a lot to do with Malik Cunningham, but the point is they've not looked good or been consistent with Malik Cunningham. They've not been really going consistent on either side of the ball. This program is certainly not heading in the right direction, and I'm concerned that if things don't get better, this could be along the same lines of what we saw at Georgia Tech. And quite frankly, outside the league, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Neil Brown situation at West Virginia. They just seem to be a little bit more talented than their execution is. Boston College is really struggling. But, that's been a program that's actually overachieved a little bit under Jeff Hafley. This is the only one year that it's not been the case. They've got a good quarterback in Phil Jakovic. And that was a good win against Louisville, the aforementioned Louisville. But I wouldn't panic so much at BC. That's a tough job. It's tough to win. And I think Jeff has done a really good job up until this year. I think you need to be a little bit more patient. Another first-year coach in Miami, Mario Cristobal. They've had a week to stew. They've got Tyler Van Dyke this week as its starting quarterback. Van Dyke gets a vulnerable North Carolina defense. We'll see if they can get things going in the ACC play. We know that the culture building and the attitude, that's what I'm looking for with Mario. He's going to have time to fix this. He's certainly going to have time to recruit and get his guys in. But this year, what's important is those guys continue to play, continue to fight, and the ones that don't, they're going to have to begin to weed out some of those guys, but they're going to have to get that attitude about fighting and playing hard and staying focused. The freelancing stuff has got to stop. It's been a real bad look for the Hurricane to this point. Pitt, what an ugly loss to Georgia Tech. Now, listen, the Coastal, I thought Pitt had as good a chance to win it as anybody. You talking about kicking yourself in the rear up and down the street. If you lose the Coastal because you lost to Georgia Tech, that may be the worst loss of the season by any ACC team, meaning they lost an ACC game that could cost them the division in a game they had no business losing. Incredible. College football, you got to love it unless you're on the wrong end of a game like that. North Carolina's defense finally showed up against Virginia Tech. It limited them to 3.9 yards per play. Time is going to tell if that performance had more to do with UNC's growth or Virginia Tech's abysmal attack. I think it's a little bit of both, but Virginia Tech is in really bad shape. No question about that. Let's keep an eye out. And I think North Carolina's offense is really good. And I do think Drake May is one outstanding performer. I think the best freshman in the country by a long shot this year. Duke steamrolled Virginia 38-17. Riley Leonard continues to be one of the better-looking quarterbacks. The defense plays pretty sound. Duke team's pretty good. Really impressed what they're doing. Look, Syracuse, they only had Wagner. They're 1 win away from bowl eligibility. You got to love that, okay? They're getting it done. They're not going to make a run at it. They're not going to end up with as a 9 or 10 win team, but they're going to go to a bowl game, and that's big. Florida State, look, they had a chance to beat Wake Forest. I thought Wake's offense would be too much of a problem. They offensively against Wake couldn't make enough plays on third down. They're dealing with the injury bug at bad time. They travel to NC State, then host Clemson. So the difficulty and the frustration is going to come from the Florida State fans. Let's get out in front of this, okay? Let's just call it what it is. Excitement after, beating LSU and positive signs that they look a little different. They do. Lost to Wake last week. They're going to lose to NC State more than likely this weekend. Then they're going to lose to Clemson. So it's going to be 3 losses in a row. And then there's going to be, where are we now? That's going to be the talk. If indeed they lose to NC State. I'm certain they're going to lose to Clemson. I think they're going to lose to NC State. But we shall see. I think that's big. NC State, as I mentioned, they were not able to take advantage of this Clemson secondary. I think NC State's offense is way too inconsistent. Look, there's a lot of talk about this team, and I do think they have talent on defense. I think they're pretty good, but they can't hold up. They are not getting the performance out of the quarterback, out of the passing game. The entire offense is not good enough. So Florida State has a chance here because, but they're going to have to be healthy, and they're going to have to play really well. But NC State's just is a good team, but they're not special because they don't play consistently enough on offense. And I would maybe put them in Wake Forest, and I can flip-flop them, who's second, who's third. Wake Forest is so good offensively. They're well coached. It's incredibly organized, well-run program, and no one does more with less in this league. This is the ultimate developmental program in this league. And then when you look at places like Virginia and Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech, they say, what the hell? Look at what they're doing at Wake. This puts a lot of pressure on finding somebody that's one hell of a ball coach that can really do a tremendous job getting more bang for the buck, so to speak. And, of course, in this one-team league that has been Clemson, it continues to be Clemson. No doubt the best team in the ACC. No doubt really going into last week's game. But you could at least have a doubt coming out of it if they had lost to NC State. We know Clemson's season last year was not very good, but look at how well they finished. Give them a lot of credit for rebounding. This is why Clemson has the best chance of being the 4th team, if not maybe the 3rd team in the playoffs. They've got the easiest path to the playoffs because I don't see anybody in the ACC that's going to beat them in the regular season or in the ACC championship game. I think they can get better and better. They can develop their team. They can work on things, and they're still going to win every game this year. I think they're unbeaten, and an unbeaten Clemson is going to make the national playoffs. Ohio State still has to go through Michigan. They have to go through a decent team in Penn State, and they're going to have to beat somebody in the Big Ten West in the conference championship game. They're going to do all 3 of those things, but it won't be as easy as what Clemson has to do. And, of course, you're not going to have an easy path in the SEC. It'll still end up being Georgia and Alabama, but they have more difficult paths to get there and certainly have the difficulty of beating the other, which is why I think there's a chance that both of those teams could end up in the playoffs. And so we shall see. Clemson has the easiest path. I think that somebody like USC is not as good as Clemson, and they've got more balance in the Pac-12. I think in the Big 12, Oklahoma State is not quite as good as Clemson, and they have a much more balanced league, a much more difficult path. So I still think the ACC with Clemson is in pretty good position. A reminder to check out more detailed film room analysis of all of the teams in the ACC, all of the teams and all of the conferences over at LandryFootball.com, all the college breakdowns, all the NFL breakdowns inside the film room from a coaching and scouting perspective. So check it out there. Take advantage of our football season sale in particular. I'd like to ask you to subscribe, like, and share the ACC Football and Beyond show, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a fan of the ACC football, get ACC Football and Beyond. If you're a fan of SEC Football and Beyond, Big Ten Football and Beyond, subscribe to your favorite conference podcast. Also subscribe, like, and share the Landry Football Podcast Network. That'll get you all the shows that we do, college and NFL, throughout the network. And if you would, subscribe, like, and share the Off the Hook Sports YouTube channel, where you can watch me do all the shows that we do on the college end. So we appreciate you joining us. We'll be back later in the week to break down all the games for Week 6. Can you believe it? Yes, Week 6 already in college football. We'll break it down for you. Keep it here, and we'll see you over on the website.